Hey everyone. So I've recently had the opportunity to provide some education and training around the requirements for generators per NFPA 110. And NFPA 110 is our generator standard, it's our generator code. And we follow the 2010 edition because NFPA 101 2012 edition is what CMS adopted as part of the conditions of participation for hospitals. And it references the 2010 edition. And in the 2010 edition, generators are specifically listed as to what applies. This is a great example of why the scope of a code document is so important, okay? So hang with me. In chapter 1, which is the scope, the administration section of NFPA 110, in 1.1.3.6, it specifically says that generators that are not level 1 or level 2 as defined by chapter 4 are not dictated to follow this code. They're not required to follow NFPA 110. Well, what does that mean? Well, so we know that a level 1 generator is a generator that if it fails, it's likely to cause harm. Level 2 is that it's less likely to cause harm. Those are defined in the definitions chapter 2 of NFPA 110. So what it's saying is that if you have an optional convenience generator, that's not specific words of what it says, but that's what the intent is. If you have an optional generator, then you are not required to maintain it to NFPA 110. Well, that means the weekly, the monthly, the so on and so forth. But does that mean that you shouldn't? Well, that's a different conversation, okay? So you do have to still follow manufacturer's requirements or an AEM plan, an alternative equipment maintenance strategy. And that's very important because you can't just have the generator and not do anything at all. Then it's not taking care of your utility assets. But I'll give you an example. We have a hospital that has a backup generator for a backup chiller, okay? We maintain it according to manufacturer's recommendations, change the oil, and do monthly run tests, but we're not doing the weeklies every time. And that's okay. It's not required to because it's an optional standby generator for an emergency situation only. A backup to a backup, right? So tampering that, going through that risk assessment, making sure that we understand the requirements, gets us to that point. Another important thing to note is that earlier this year, I was working on a project where we had, it was a leased building, and I found out that our maximum insurance payout was $1 million per claim. Well, in one refrigerator, actually it was 2 refrigerators on one circuit, we had more than $1 million of medicine stored in there. And since it's a leased building, the lease actually said that the property manager would maintain that generator. Well, that generator was very similar situation, a convenience generator, not serving the life safety stuff installed for this purpose, but it wasn't being maintained to NFPA 110. So this one, I would think about that differently because of the risk associated with what we have to lose. So it's not always just because we don't have to. Number one, you don't have to follow NFPA 110 if you do not have a level 1 or level 2 generator. That's the first thing. Number 2 is that if you don't have to follow 110, should you still follow 110? Right? So it comes down to your risk analysis process and talking through and understanding the key pieces of information. Understanding that we had a maximum $1 million payout on medical loss of medicine was huge. That was a black swan piece of information for us to be able to make critical decisions so we can pivot and install things that we may need. Maybe we need a UPS or something else. So understanding all parties and the aspects associated with it leads to the right decision for your facility, for your equipment. So let me know any thoughts you have or other pieces of equipment that you guys are treating that you evaluate through risk analysis. And it's all ultimately ties back to, for that specific generator, ties back to reliability-centered maintenance. We are able to make the decisions on that generator based on what's required. So love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, Happy learning.